Okay. Now, how do I get back to where I was so I can see what I'm doing? You cannot minimize when you're recording, so you're in charge of Facebook.
That's fine.
Okay.
So, are we live on Facebook now?
We are live on Facebook. I believe so. I do believe so. You can check.
I'm not seeing it yet. I'm just hitting refresh.
Oh.
That's fine. It's a learning experience.
It certainly is, and you know. Oh, I can do this, and then I can go there. I don't want a title. I just want to go live. I'll make titles later.
Oh, we are now streaming live on Facebook.
And possibly on YouTube. But there you go.
Did you press in more than one location?
Yeah.
Well, there we go. I've just got the notification that we've gone live on Facebook. not that I can see it on Facebook yet, mind you.
I can't see it.
And if I'm looking over this way, it's because I'm looking at the Facebook screen.
I can't see it.
Good. It's all good.
You know. Oh, I don't know what's going on with anything. Really don't. I haven't got a clue.
Do you know what? Sometimes that's just life.
Oh, this is so good. Now I'm in there, but I can't get there. Okay. Let's see where we can go now. I'm back.
Sometimes I'm also quite glad that I don't understand where your brain goes half the time, and I don't always follow you.
You know what? I don't understand where my brain goes half the time. In fact, I don't understand where my brain goes anytime, to be perfectly honest with you. Because basically when it's not with me, it's probably in a better space.
Okay. So I've now got the little thumbnail of us talking on that screen over there. So that's quite cool. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I'll keep the sound off because that could just confuse me too much.
No idea. I left a message and Trudy's just said, "When is this for?" And I was like, "Now."
That's fine.
We may have Trudy.
So Trudy, if you hear us, although I don't think you're live yet. Oh no, we've got one person. No, I think the one person on live is me.
Yes, it would be the one person who's live is you. It's just the two of us.
I'll stop talking nonsense now. Right, so Leslie, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Therapist in Conversation, a recap of the year.
And what a year it's been.
Oh yeah, because last time when we did the monthly thing, we did looking forward because that comes out in January. So we're doing this live now.
Yep.
On Facebook as a little bit of an experiment and a bit of a play, because it would be rather nice to figure out how to work this stuff for next year. Because we've done quite well last year in having monthly meetings and having people turn up.
We have.
And very nicely give us their time and their information and their expertise in different areas. I'm thinking that it didn't quite go the way that I had envisaged, but when does anything ever do that these days?
So perhaps backtrack slightly and tell us what it was you envisioned when you came up with this idea to do a monthly chat with therapists.
Well, I thought what we would do would be invite someone every month and have a topic. We did have a topic, but it never quite worked out that we had a guest because we only have an hour. And when we have 8 people or so on, it can go very quickly. But I think that next year what I might do is actually have 1 or 2 guests for our topics.
Okay.
Who are experts in their fields.
Okay.
And well known for being experts in their fields, depending on if we can strong arm them into coming. And basically work one or 2 of the sessions around that and see how it works, see how it goes.
Okay.
Also inviting a little bit more of the public in, I think, to view by doing Facebook Lives. The way we're doing just now, not exactly the public, but the more of the group that we have.
Okay.
So that people get to know that they can dip their feet in the water. It's not just a set group of people who actually come together every month to have a chat. We are actually looking for everybody's input, because that's better than not having it.
Okay.
And also, my idea was at the beginning of this was the fact that with this microscopic terrorist that we have with a vice-like grip around their throats, basically people need therapists now. They need healers. They need people who are going to be able to help them now in this moment at this time without having to wait, because as we both know, stress, mental health situations are just going bananas, and people are having to wait in waiting lists, and that's no good. If you're falling apart, you're falling apart at that time. You're not falling apart and able to wait, put it on the shelf for 6 months while you wait for somebody who from your doctor who, although you might not think that they have a lot to do, they've still got a lot to do. They've still got a whole load of emergencies and urgent things to go on and deal with while they're trying to work how to do it at 2 meter distance, and every other third chair is the only one you can sit on while you're in the waiting room, if they're actually allowing people in waiting rooms. So this was the idea, getting people to understand that we can do it through this medium.
Mm-hmm.
We can actually work with people. We can still do what we do with people. If they can't be seen face to face, we can still do it virtually face to face.
Yep.
And it also would allow us to have a platform on social media that we can market ourselves and show people, hey, hello, if you need some help, we're over here. And we're not just one type of therapist, we are a plethora of modalities. So it's not a case of one size fits all. Someone in the group will be able to help you one way or another. And you may even be referred to someone by us, either in the group or outside of the group. If no one in the group is going to fit that situation, then I don't see why we can't refer outside of it if we know someone who's not actually had the sense to join us so far.
But that might encourage them to join us.
It might encourage them to join us too. And so looking back at it, I think we've been mainly successful.
Okay.
In that people have come monthly and they've set aside time for us to actually talk together and do what well, basically what I do best is blether. But at the same time, it's also, I believe, opened everyone's eyes to what everyone else does and how they do it. Because for me on LinkedIn, you can see this coach, 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 coach. And they say, oh, coaching and finance, coaching for health, coaching for well-being. But that kind of has a very broad expanse. And you can kind of fall through the cracks trying to figure out, is that the one I want? Do I want that one? But even then, it's like horses for courses. You have to like the person, you have to be gelling with them, you have to be able to speak to them and understand what they do. So I was hoping that we would get this idea of who everyone was, because it's a conversation basically that we're having. It's therapists in conversation, not therapists in competition. So the conversation is flowing so that we can actually allow people to see that, number one, we're human.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, we're still working and we can help.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you are actually, I'm mobile, so I'm not allowed to see people face to face because I have to go out to them.
Yeah.
You've actually managed to get some face to face work
Mm-hmm.
through this, and so you're great to be able to say what the challenges are.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah, and they've been interesting challenges.
Well, I would say that in the Chinese proverb way, this has been a very interesting year all round.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think what you were saying about the fact that we are therapists in conversation, I think we're also therapists in collaboration, or I think that's where I would like to see this going, in the fact that we can collaborate with each other. But it's also that point as well, is that as therapists, we also need to work with people on ourselves. And I think that is such an important part, that it's great to have all the training and the learning and the knowledge, but if we're not having our little checkups and our service effectively, if you want to go down the car analogy, like your MOT and your servicing regularly, how can we continue to help other people?
Yeah.
And this way we get that wonderful opportunity to say, do you know what, I've never tried that therapy before, but now I know someone who does it.
Yeah, because it's great because we can actually say, do you know what? I've been to this person, as I've come to you,
Yeah.
and we've worked on each other. Um, and so we both know how we work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much easier then for us to say to a person who's coming, I say, oh, actually, do you know what? You might like to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are certain things that you do that I would perhaps touch on, but not go in quite as deeply as you would do.
Yeah.
Therefore, I would say, like, I can take you this far. However, I know someone who I trust succinctly because I go to her myself.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is one of the best referrals that you can have.
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
this idea that we actually can, and we are all over the place. I mean, we are all over the UK, and I'm hoping that we're going to be all over Canada, America, Europe. The bugger the whole Brexit situation. This is something. This is communication, and as you say, this is collaboration. This is letting people understand that people need people.
Yeah.
And
But I guess it's also that aspect that while we're in conversation and as I mentioned, the collaboration, I think it's also, we need to be seen to be available to Joe Blogs public,
oh
but
yeah,
we also need to be supported. And if we feel supported, then we maybe are being supportive as well. And I think that as a community, that is a really important thing, from my
and
perspective.
also at the moment we are really intrinsically the only people who can support each other. Therapists supporting therapists at the moment in order to allow everyone to be able to do what they're supposed to be doing and do it well.
Hmm.
Because we are all working in different areas, and in Scotland we have different rules to what they have in England. We discovered that recently. So we have to take that into consideration. Excuse me.
We do, and I guess it's not just Scotland and England. For the last couple of months, each different council has had different instructions and rules. So, for example, you're only 5 miles down the road from me, but you couldn't have come to see me face to face last week
No.
when I had clients come and see me face to face, because the clients that came to see me were from the same council area as me. They weren't crossing council boundaries. So
Yeah.
you've got that added complication as well. And it is that way of, if we can get the support from each other, regardless of what the nuances are of the guidelines that we're currently battling through, which I'm hoping are not going to be here to stay long term. But if we can support each other just through the day-to-day, through the, what would you do in this situation, or how do I go and target this new market? How do I get my message out there? I think all of those aspects as well, while I think they're kind of to the side of what we're doing on the main monthly calls, I think as a group and on Facebook, if that's where we keep ourselves, or on LinkedIn, if that's where we choose to stay to, I think it's that aspect of knowing that you can reach out to other therapists and say, do you know what, I'm struggling on this little thing. Have you got any advice?
Yeah.
Or, I liked what you did there. Can you tell me about it?
Yeah. And I think also that brings us into the area where it gives us more information on how we can relate that to our clients
Yeah.
as well, because it's almost like a sounding board. It's like brainstorming in a way. We were talking about that
Yeah.
this morning. And there's nothing better than actually voicing things out loud. We can be sitting, and I don't know about you, but I know that many therapists, I've done it myself. We sit there and we don't say anything, but we're wondering how it's going to work. We start to worry. We start to stress. And this is what you were talking about. And mentorship as well, and understanding that we need somebody to talk to too on occasions.
Yeah.
Just to say, there's no shame in saying, listen, I'm not really getting this. I'm not working with this very well. But also, as you have pointed out, and I agree with entirely, there's no shame in saying, do you know what? I'm doing great here. I've got this.
Yeah.
I understand this. But please don't say that if you haven't.
Yeah. It's about being able to be honest and open, and it's that, I think I've discussed it with you before, the vulnerability aspect, but it's about being brave enough to be vulnerable.
Yeah, and we expect our clients to be brave enough and vulnerable enough to come to us.
Exactly.
We must also allow them to understand that we are humans too.
Yeah. So while we might not show those vulnerabilities in a client session, having this forum, I think, is a really great place to actually say, do you know what? I could do with a hand.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I see a lot in people who work in psychiatry, in like psychiatric nursing, particularly people who deal with severe mental health patients over the long term. They actually start to take those things on themselves, and they don't understand what to do with it. So they start getting depressed. They start getting stressed, and social work. I think when I was working in it a long time ago, there were more people off work than there were actually on work, and they were off work through stress because they were actually fighting two ends. They were fighting the situation in that the constraints of what they could do and what they couldn't do, and then they were fighting the clients to a certain extent as a case of, don't blame me because I'm not that one who did that. There's no kind of, they're the front, and this is what happens when you are the face of it, and you're the one person in front of the person who needs you, and you can't do anything because you're being blocked from behind by red tape, etc. You're the one who's going to get it in the neck. So that gets taken inside.
Yeah.
Of course, people don't want to work in that situation, but people aren't really trained to deal with that either.
And I guess it's one of those ones you don't go to school to learn about how to deal with emotions, which is a shame. But it is one of those things. It's not taught in mainstream education, so
not in the West. It's not,
and it's probably not taught. And I don't know because I've not done the degrees and everything that are required for social work. But I would guess it's not taught maybe in the depth it needs to be of protecting yourself.
No.
And you see it so much on TV shows just now where they're really trying to have that push of talking to people about things and actually getting across it's okay to come forward and say, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah. And there are so many different ways of dealing with things, but actually they're still clinging to the old ways in many of the disciplines that are going on. And the old ways are very authoritarian and they don't work. You will do this because it's good for you.
Yeah.
You are the one who is strong here. You are the one who tells them what to do. But if you have someone who's totally out of their mind with worry, stress, in trouble from every end that you can even think of, they're not going to want to listen to what they should do. And have this person who is in a steady job getting a reasonably good wage, but they don't understand that they're the 15th or 20th person that morning who's had that conversation with this person. Because it's like when I used to work in the veterinary profession, everyone's animal is their own. That's their only.
Their only concern.
Yeah, but what they don't see on the flip side of that is that we on the other side of the counter, on the other side in the theatre, have 15 or 20 animals, and then we've got everybody else who's on the phone wanting to come in. And this happens when you watch things like 24 Hours in A&E, and you see people in the waiting room going, oh, why is it taking so long? Look at that guy. There's nothing wrong with him. And honestly, I've been in that situation where I've had people drumming their fingers at the end of the counter and saying to me, You know, I've just come in, I've got greens on, I've got a stethoscope swung around my neck, and I've got blood up my elbows. And somebody has actually stood there and said, "My cat needs a vaccination now." I'm sorry, do you see me? Does this look like I'm only doing vaccinations?
But exactly as you said, people have blinkers on when it comes to something that concerns them, and it's so easy to get lost down that rabbit hole of this is my bubble and this is where I'm at, and not taking into account other people. But then you've got the flip side of it as well, where you've got people who have the attitude of, I'm looking out for everybody else.
Yes.
And because I've looked out for everybody else in such great detail, I haven't looked after myself.
And you
And actually, maybe I need to take that step back. And a lot of people don't. And I was speaking to a potential client last week who said, yeah, I'm always there for other people. I said, so who's there for you?
Yeah, but
and what are you doing for yourself? But until you have those conversations, not everyone realizes, because I don't think as a nation we're aware of what's going on.
They don't know how to not give themselves over to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Because they've been taught that, you know, and it's usually women. Because
there are men in there too.
There are men in there too, but it's majority of the cases, it's usually women who are taught that it's their job to do that.
Yeah.
Because that's what women do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, fortunately, actually, my husband realizes that my sympathy bone, well, he says it was removed at birth, and I keep having to remind him that being Scottish, we don't have one at all. And, you know, he should have thought of that in the first place. But it is true. It's one of those things that there has to be a cutoff point. But the guilt that can get laid on you for actually putting your foot down and saying no just once, because you're doing something contrary to trend, the way you would normally do. But at the same time, and it goes right back to the cliche of being on the airplane. When that mask comes down, you put it on your own face first.
Absolutely.
It's going to be useless to anybody if you don't.
Yeah. And just as a slight aside, we now have people watching with us. So if you are watching on Facebook, say hi. So hi, Alexandra. I'm not sure who the other person is on there just now, but we're like live Facebook stuff working. But actually, and I think the way Facebook Live works is we're about a minute ahead of what's streaming on Facebook as well, which is always good fun and nicely confusing. But we seem to have kind of drifted off topic slightly.
Yes, but there you go.
So I'm gonna pull you back in a little bit.
Yeah, I do need my reins being pulled every so often. Well, if I had a red nose, it'd be called Rudolph.
So my challenge for 2021 is to keep a hold of those reins a little bit tighter and pull you back a bit quicker, eh?
Oh yeah, I can go way off, of course, way off, just totally, yes. The wastelands of just sheer idiocy sometimes, but
absolutely,
it's fair. It's fun sometimes to just go off on a tangent. I'm a tangential person.
Okay.
And
hi to Dave as well. So come join us if you're watching on Facebook. I think the Zoom link's somewhere still in the Facebook group, so you're more than welcome to jump on and not just listen to the two of us blather.
I did post it. Yes, I did. I may have pressed post.
It's definitely on my screen as a link. So yeah, it's all good.
Okay, that's all right then. Yeah, please come and join us because I'm just wittering here.
Yeah, she is. Come save me, please. Come save me.
Now, listen, we've got to get Angela doing more of this. Actually, we have to get Angela doing more of this because she needs a little bit of practice here.
I don't know if I need practice. I'm just not a fan of the sound of my own voice, but it's all good fun. So anyway, let's get back to the topic. So quick diversion away from me. I don't want the attention. So how has 2020 been for you?
It's been really good, and that is a kind of interesting thing to say because I haven't been financially secure. I haven't been anything, but it's been really good because I've been learning new stuff. I've been connecting and collaborating with a whole load of people. And I've met people who, under any other circumstance, I would never have met at all. Wouldn't even have being aware of the existence of what they do, never mind anything else. I mean, I didn't know that you had people who were thought leadership people. I didn't think that was a thing.
And then when you work it out as a thing, then you work out, well, what does it mean?
Well, yes. Hang on a minute. Leadership, thought. I'm thinking about leadership. Does that make me a thought leadership person? And
did you end up down a wormhole?
Yes. Yes. Down that rabbit hole again. But it's been an interesting. I love rabbit holes, as you know, and it's been an interesting thing to just throw myself into it. It's been stressful at times, as you know. I've had a few meltdowns. I have a Luddite factor that goes on. I also have this strange compulsion to keep pushing it because I keep putting myself into a situation where it's going to happen because I feel the need to best this machine and to understand what's going on. I'm never going to go into the guts of it and actually operate. Give me a dog or a cat, no problem at all. This thing, but pushing buttons, I can do that. Oh boy, can I! But
not always the right ones in the right order, though, right?
Exactly, and it gets frustrating because the thing that, and it's a really good model for understanding human behavior as well, is that when you're looking at a program that someone else has actually an algorithm they've programmed, you have to be able to think like they do because it's their logic that makes which button it is that you push first.
Or you just read the instructions.
Even then, it's not entirely clear. Even then,
I've been on the other side of that and actually been involved in design and development of things. So I think my brain probably works a little bit more closely to that perspective. So yeah.
It's definitely a mindset, and it's a mindset beyond a little bit beyond where I am. I'm like, where is that? Where is that land? I can't find that land of the place where I need to be to get. Which button is it? Just tell me which button to press. And it just is take Control Alt, do this, do that, do the other, and I'm like, wait, where? How does that work? When I was doing French at university, they were using a normal keyboard, but you had certain things that you could do. You could alt this one and it would become the inflection for this. Hi, Dave. Inflection for something or other. And I have totally forgotten how it works. Couldn't tell you how to do it now. But also it may well have been that those keyboards were actually built for that purpose. So if I wanted to write in French on this English keyboard, if I couldn't do it now because I've forgotten how.
But it's just about getting that muscle memory, though, isn't it? And actually playing with it, because you've seen my crazy new keyboard, and I'm still learning how to.
Oh, hey, Dave, there's something totally Freudian about this. I mean, look at this thing.
It's lots of fun and it's very cute. But yeah, it's taken a little bit of time to get used to. But now it's
a bit like those knives and forks we give toddlers now that are all angled.
Why is that? I mean, have you seen how people eat on television these days? It's ridiculous. They don't know how to use a knife and fork.
You've just got off on another tangent, Dave. Thanks.
Do you know what? It wasn't a Leslie tangent. Did you know?
No, listen, it was a Dave tangent. Then you've got two tangentials on.
Oh, help.
No, it's like.
Good afternoon, ladies.
Hello.
I've just got the small keyboard. I have the one, strangely enough, I'm the one with dyscalculia and I'm the one with the number pad on my laptop.
I've got no numbers on my keyboard.
You've got switches that the letters become numbers, and that really is like how it works on my brain, but not quite with the control.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is why professionals need to speak.
That's why we need help too.
We're all human.
You're all right. As long as you don't throw me out any numbers, you're all right. You're fine.
Well, there's only three of us, so it should be a little bit easier.
Oh yeah, everything comes in threes, including disaster.
Oh, thanks for that. I'll just go now.
So, how would you recap this year?
Say that again, sorry.
How would you recap this year?
I think it's been a massive year of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think when we think back to 2019, and we were talking about how the world of mental health was in crisis, and we didn't know what was on the horizon. And all of the reasons that were given that we couldn't fix what we knew was wrong, predominantly was we haven't got time to, because we've just got to keep going. It was like we're riding a unicycle, and if we stop pedaling, it's going to fall over. And for me, for the team, it's been time to actually go, right, what bits don't work? What are the things that are actually causing us to keep tripping ourselves up, and as a sector? And let's bring with us the things that we know work. And then we can see the bits, the gaps from the things that we can leave behind. And where we've worked with clients and we've worked with companies that have been able to do that, they've actually used 2020 to build for purpose. And it's been a massive opportunity of discovery to be able to do that. But it also means they are in so much more of a resilient position going into 2021. And I think for me, rounding up the year, that has been the biggest bonus to come out from what we've been through. But no longer do we think that mental health is in crisis in the way that we did at the beginning of 2020. Because we know that as a sector, we can actually cope with what we've been through in a way we never imagined possible when we were looking at the beginning of the year.
We are talking about breathing space, though. I mean, this is it. It's a case of actually how you perceive the situation, because I would suspect that there would be quite a few people at the beginning of this, when it started, that there would be crisis. Oh my good grief, this is another level of crisis. But it's actually how you look at it, how you treat it, and how where your mindset is.
Yeah.
How you're going to actually say, okay, what do I need to do?
Yeah. And it's that difference between the reaction and the response, isn't it? And reaction and response is something that all therapeutic professionals of all modalities understand as the reason for getting to the response is that's where you can get the work done.
Yeah.
The reaction phase, that's like throwing a hand grenade in a firework factory. It's just going to keep going off. And for myself, getting to a point where the response to this new level of crisis was more important than the, oh my God, we've got another crisis. It's like, what's the response here?
No, because I thankfully missed it, but during war, the Second World War, that crisis brought a lot of people together in a way that was different. Everybody was afraid the way that they are now, but there were some people who really, really couldn't cope with it at all. I hate that word, cope, actually. They just couldn't take it. But there were other people who found something, that other level in themselves, that actually stepped up and said, okay, hey, listen, we can do this. And we have to do this because we really don't have a choice.
Yeah. And
something that's bigger than we are, and we all have to come together. We have to forget petty differences, which is why I can't understand why we're still doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we have to stop petty differences, and we have this one thing to deal with across the board. because that's what pandemic did.
And that, for me, I gave a presentation in the summer, and one of the things that came from that presentation was that very idea that when, as a species or a community or as a organization or as a collective of people come together and say, actually, in order for us to survive, we need to put the petty differences aside. We need to actually acknowledge that we are all fighting the same common attack mechanism. And when we look at how our species has evolved, it has only ever succeeded in that kind of scenario by doing that. The therapeutic sector in 2020 decided to almost implode itself by going, right, no, we all need to be in this bit or this bit or this bit. And it's like, hold on a second, guys, what are we doing here? We are telling the world that in order to survive, we've got to come together and we've got to take all the differences apart. But our very own sector is going, let's get in these silos.
Yeah, let's compartmentalize.
And it's completely counterproductive to everything that we know and understand about the psychology of the human experience. But we've also got to remember that our survival as a species started by coming together against the Neanderthal threat. We have been born out of collaboration as a species.
Through conflict.
Exactly. And we have been attacked by a biological entity that does not want to do anything other than exist at our expense.
Yeah, but it doesn't actually know that.
Exactly. We do. We understand that this is a biological entity that has invaded our existence. It's Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, we have been invaded by the alien that we cannot see, that just wants to get into our lungs and eat off of our juicy pink bits. Thank you very much.
Well, the thing is, though, that it's not exactly an alien.
No.
It's not extraterrestrial. It's
alien to us as a species.
It's alien to our immune systems because it's actually been evolving itself in such a way that it can actually do what it does. And it will actually evolve quicker than we can because that's what they do. And there are so many different ways of looking at it and ideas as to how it came about. And some of it has got to do with the amount of deforestation that we've actually done by upsetting the balance. It's allowed this to actually spread the way that it's spread quicker. So we kind of did it to ourselves.
But if come
in. Why don't you just come in?
We've created the environment that allows this to happen to us. Right?
So therefore, we can uncreate that environment. By stopping doing what we've been doing for the last 40 centuries.
And we had an amazing in-conversation with episode with an epidemiologist from Maine in the US who pointed out this is a virus that on a scale of viruses that is so small, what the other viruses that are out there that are locked in the perma ice and the permafrosts and the rainforest environments, that we have got no way of protecting against, those ones are going to make this look like child's play. And if we can't come together
so is this our practice run then?
Mother Nature's given us a warning.
We started getting warnings a while ago. We just ignored them.
And if you look at how the first kind of round of lockdowns went, Mother Nature sent us to our room and grounded us while she tidied up the house. right? The oceans got cleaner, the air got cleaner, the ozone got a little bit more full, etc. But like most teenagers that have been grounded, we kick against the door and we go, no, that's it. I've been in here long enough now. I want to go out. Only Mother Nature has gone, actually, no, you're not ready to go back out yet. So you get back inside, because we're not, as a species, coming together to deal with this.
No, we're still actually buying Starbucks and going to Burger King and now eating more soya because that's supposed to be good for us. However, deforestation is happening because we're
buying more soya.
Buying more soya. And quinoa.
Yeah. And this whole thing is really where the disconnect between ourselves as individuals, ourselves as a species, and ourselves as an entity on the rock has all fallen to pieces.
But before I feel my range getting tugged, it's it's also got to do with the fact that we are less connected to all of this. We are disconnected from the fact that whatever we do has a knock-on effect to everything else. Yeah. And that goes into our well-being as well. Mm. All of this has got to do with our well-being. If we're mentally not looking at the things that we must look at and keeping ourselves well, we are not going to be staying as well as we could be.
Yeah.
Therefore, just
our individual balance is out.
We're out of balance. We're out of harmony with things.
Right. So if we're out of balance on a rock that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, then we are not going to be in balance with that rock.
Nope.
It's physically impossible to do that. And the disconnect between our emotional, our psychological, and our physical well-being has been groomed into all of us. And we're only just beginning to realize things that people like Sitting Bull were saying in the 1800s.
Yeah,
actually make sense.
Yeah, but that's just it though, Dave. It's been groomed out of us in the West for a long time, and it's only just starting to pick its way back in now. Yeah. It's only starting to weave its way back in now. And it's like what Angela does with the health kinesiology, that's all got to do with balancing and harmonizing the systems and the meridians, etc., which is a little bit alien to most people in the West to a certain extent, unless they've actually gone and had some health kinesiology or they do it. Mm. However, if you go into the East, you will find that people go, oh, yeah. Mm. And it's like, there was a thing, I think I spoke about it at one point on one of the TICs that I read an article where these psychologists in America were absolutely having hairy fits and dying baldy at the fact that basically this mindfulness carry on, this could be bad for you. It's, you can't just do that. It could be bad. There's absolutely no evidence that this works. And they've just denied the whole other sphere of the globe.
It doesn't fit with the DSM model.
No, of course not.
And the DSM model is the Bible, and we can't come away. It's like we survived for centuries by understanding the importance of balance with the world around us, but also the balance within us. And without the two on either end of the balance of life, the world will suffer. Yeah. Well, congratulations, we've now reached tipping point.
Yeah. And it's the understanding of how imbalanced that we are. I don't know if you've ever seen on some of those really interesting What Can Go Wrong clip programs. Where there's this Australian guy who's got to sit in front of the Dalai Lama. I mean, he's got there. This takes, that people wait for years, their whole lives, to actually be in the same space as the Dalai Lama. And what does he do? He decides to tell him a joke about a Buddhist monk who goes into a pizza thing and it says, I'll have one with everything. And of course, the Dalai Lama didn't get it. And he went even worse. He tried to explain it to him.
Yeah.
And it was painful. But at the same time, it's a case of, hang on a minute. For you to actually think that this is something that you can joke with to someone who it's actually their life, their way of being, their whole reason dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another disconnect, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it just shows, like he expects, because the Dalai Lama goes around the world and does this and has been displaced from his own country and lives in Dar es Salaam, he's decided that he's got to have a Western sense of humor. He's got to have a Western way of thought. No, the reason that he's there is to actually introduce people to the Eastern way of thinking.
And again, it's that sense of attitude that's been groomed in place of what has been groomed out.
Yeah.
And we are seeing more and more people. I hate the phrase waking up, but I just hate waking up. But this sense that we are waking up is being bandied around. Only this information was here all the time. Yeah. This is not new. You are not reinventing this knowledge. What you're doing is reconnecting to what has been here for millennia.
Yeah, but this is the thing, isn't it? If you can't sell it by putting a new twist on it, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
And this is the thing. The instant gratification gene has been switched on and then some. And we want the new bright shiny bauble. We want the new thing. Oh, I've never heard of this before. It must be great. It must be new. It must be wonderful. No. It's rooted in this. It's like NLP is rooted in Hawaiian shamanism. The 7 pillars of NLP, 7 pillars of Huna. So, hello, go back. Ancient wisdom is actually coming in slowly. We're using it left, right, and center as commodities almost, but we're not getting it at the deeper level. We're not using it or connecting with it the way that we could do. And this is where we compartmentalize again.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I'm going to be a vegetarian, but I eat fish sometimes.
Well, that's called a pescatarian. But yes. Bringing that back then slightly, so we've talked about disconnection.
Come with a tambourine.
That's our pulling on the reins.
We've talked about the disconnection. We've talked about some reconnection. What do you think 2020's done on either of those sides? Has it helped to disconnect or reconnect, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's done a bit of both.
I think it depends on where the individual sits in their reaction to response phase.
I think it's got a lot to do also with this absolute terror response of grappling onto normal.
Well, I said right at the beginning.
Get back to normal.
Yeah, back to normal is what people say after grandma has passed away and it's the first Sunday that you don't go round for dinner.
Yeah, but then it's still not normal.
Yeah.
Normality is a habit.
Yeah.
It's just habit.
And, I said right at the beginning, I think it was probably February, beginning of March time. We've got to stop looking at going back to what it was in December. Because December, our way of living, our way of thinking died. We have to we have to allow people to go through the grieving process for what was 2019 and the way the systems were. We've got to design what is going to be the way forward after grandma's died.
Do you know what I'm surprised about? I'm surprised that we haven't actually had someone say, do you know what? This is 2012. It just got deferred. This is the end of the world.
Well, you're referring to the Mayan calendar and everything else, right?
Yeah, because you remember the whole carry on that went on with that.
Yeah, and that was
I'm with 2000 when the computer viruses and bugs things went on, and people.
And that was the same example was used then as to why all of this is going to fall apart. But if you look at the way the whole system that was written by the Mayans, the end of the world was the change and rebirth of new ways of living.
Yes, because it
wasn't the end of the world.
We actually translated it and cut off the last part of the sentence.
Yeah.
The end of the world as you know it.
Yeah. And when we look at what the Mayans wrote back then, when they wrote it, and what was the celestial cycles, the planet has moved further away from the sun since they wrote that.
Yeah.
Right. So it takes longer for us to get round the star than it did when they wrote it. So they wrote it, say, in 2000. Let's calculate what it actually is. I think we've moved 20 years on. And we just haven't accepted the fact that this is the change that was predicted.
Yeah.
This is the global change, not just changing computers in offices in some parts of the world. This is a global grief that we've been through.
Yeah. But let's face it as well, they're so good. I mean, they must have been some dyscalculate people doing these things, but they were so good with the Egyptian dynasties, they missed one. They missed a whole dynasty, which was like centuries. They just lost it completely, and they just went from one to the other. So what we've got to do, I think, recapping this year, is look at what's has gone on, and actually learn from it, take this as breathing space, and decide what we're going to do on this constructed timeline that we have that ends one year and begins another.
Every year,
because you know everything's going to be fixed in 2021, right? That's the whole thing.
It's all going to be fine. It's all going to be great.
2020 will just be that year we don't talk about.
Yeah, actually, I'm surprised we're not having 2020.20.
Well, there was somebody in the summer, and I can't remember whether it was somebody to do with the financial sector that, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was, but had suggested that the financial systems, everything else, press the pause button. If we press the pause button,
pretend it's not happening.
No. It was a way of stopping banks from just building up people's debt.
Yeah. To tell you the truth, I actually said that when this whole thing came out and what it was doing, and they started moaning about the economy and all the rest of it, I said there was only one way to actually deal with that: stop taxes, stop money as far as changing money is concerned and doing that. Just stop it completely.
You press the pause button so no one's incurring debt. Utility companies produce the electricity, and people have the same amount of electricity that they were getting in November 2019, right?
Yeah, because let's face it,
everything's being produced. You're paying the bills based on that.
In the utopian world kind of situation, if everybody is just working and doing what they do for their own thing and making the world work, who needs money?
But we're not there yet.
No, we're definitely not there. We're way, way beyond there yet.
And I think there would, even if it might have been a nice idea, there would be far too much disagreement and noise around doing something like pressing the pause button.
Like Mr. T over there, who's sitting on wallets and wads full of money that he's been making while he's been in his office, which is why he's ripping his guts out trying to stay there. And basically that's it. It's this idea that we actually need that, and it's only energy. It really is only energy.
And when we look at who's actually financially gaining out of this system, the banks, the pharmaceutical industries, and the universities that have been given huge amount, and big pharma being given huge amounts of money to produce something that for 100 years has been researched, that this is a virus that mutates so fast, all we can do is mitigate some symptoms in some people.
Yeah.
So the word vaccine, which means protection for all, is a misnomer. It's a false economy. In 100 years of research of coronaviruses, otherwise known as flus, we have got Lemsip, and we have got a jab that does some bits for some people. That's 100 years of research.
Yeah.
Because we know that the proteins on this virus go, oh, you've changed that. Okay, so I can't be a little triangle protein right now. I need to be a slice. Here we go. Your vaccine, Mr. Big Pharma, is a myth. It can only be a myth.
So basically what we actually have to do is think like a virus. In order to make 2021 viable, we have to start thinking like a virus.
We've got to start working as a collective species again. And if we don't work as a collective species, and in my mind, the therapeutic sector is the linchpin that allows that to happen. Yeah. And if we're not working as a collective, guess what? Ain't nobody else going to be able to.
So everybody, this is what Therapists in Conversation is all about. It's about being a collective, it's about collaboration, and it's about conversation.
And there was no scripting to get to that segue.
No, there wasn't.
I'm amazed that she went for the segue.
I'm aware of the time.
It's like most months. I set stuff up, and if somebody can smack it out of the park, it's a great conversation.
Okay, well, thanks everybody, and thank you for watching, whoever did. I'm sure this actually stays on the page. I'm not entirely sure how it works, but
it will do.
That's fine then. So enjoy and have a very festive Fankle. And we'll
I'm not going to go down the route of political correctness. Merry Christmas.
Bah humbug. We'll see you on the other side.
See you all on the other side.